if you can unmute Jeff. And commissioners attending remotely, if you can please acknowledge yourselves.
Hi, this is Bryn from Winooski.
Jeff Schulman, Burlington. For some reason, it says I can't put my video on, but maybe that's changed. Yep, changed. Got it. Thanks.
Chip Mason.
Thanks. All right, so the first item on the agenda is the agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda? That's moved by Ellen. Is there a second? Second. Second by Greg. Any discussion or proposed changes to the agenda? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? We have an agenda. Item 3 is public forum. I do not see anyone from the public, so we will clear down item 3. Move on to item 4, which is the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the contents of the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
It's moved by Ellen. Is there a second? Second. Second by Greg. Discussion to be led by Nick.
Super exciting to share this one for you today. The first time since COVID that we passed our pre-COVID numbers. So that's October compared to employments compared to all of the months that you see on this report. You know, you take a quick scroll on page 2 and you'll quickly see that since 2014, 68,776 outbound passengers is the highest that we've had. Really great news. November, December, we're looking at right now similar numbers. We don't have our finalized November numbers for you yet. Similar numbers to last year. So managing expectations, probably not going to hit what we did in October. And then December, because of some of the announcements with JetBlue and Delta, that might shift a little bit towards similar numbers to last year compared to pre-pandemic numbers. However, I do have good news that Delta has announced starting in January that they're going to increase their flights to LaGuardia and JFK. We'll talk to you a little bit more about the JetBlue. Jeff and I were able to visit JetBlue last week, I think.
Yes, yeah, last week.
Yeah, so last week. So we'll talk to you about that a little bit later on in the agenda. But with projections with Delta increasing back those flights, and of course Breeze starting at the end of January and then in February with the 2 new routes, we're looking at a pretty healthy projection for our fiscal year, and certainly our calendar year around this 23.
For either Delta, was Delta thinking about or considering some Burlington to some other places rather than to avoid New York? I get it, that that's pretty busy, but
Delta or JetBlue or both?
or both of them, yeah.
That was definitely one thing we talked to JetBlue about. Where we always talk to the big airlines and JetBlue about alternate routes, especially knowing that there's waivers right now with, or at least some leniency with the New York market that the FAA is granting, meaning the FAA allows airlines to reduce their number of flights without penalties and without losing the slots to those airports. And the whole reason for that is because there's congestion and there's not enough air traffic controllers right now in that market. So we continuously ask for additional flights. We did ask JetBlue to consider it. I may have said I'm handcuffing myself to the table until the decision is reversed to get a job. Maybe that I should have introduced myself.
Security call.
But there's some opportunities. JetBlue is a very different conversation because of many different factors, very similar to what we talked about at the last airport commission. But Delta is a whole different ballgame. We're going to be on the road starting in January. We're visiting all of our airline carriers as we do a couple of times a year. Delta being one of them, and new destinations as well as larger aircraft and or additional flights to existing destinations is certainly on the conversation agenda. But Delta increasing to the New York market for us starting in January and starting in March to Atlanta. Right now they fly the Boeing 717, which is about 110 seats on that plane. They're going to be bringing in an A320, which is close to 160 seats. So increasing it. So they're paying attention to Burlington really, really well with
Is it really just the air traffic controller numbers, or is it, I mean, we flew in we were out west for Thanksgiving and went through New York, and there was a terrible rainstorm. And so we're sitting on the plane, and as we were, well, the rainstorm stopped the lights or turned off all the lights in the this part of the terminal. But we were already on the plane, but for quite a while, no one was getting on the plane because there were no lights. The winds and the rain did something to the electricity, but they had to, once everyone got on, the pilot said, well, they've rerouted us to take off in the opposite direction. So we're in a queue of 50 planes. Because, they were all supposed to take off in this direction, and I guess the storm whipped the winds around.
Yeah.
So, I thought, 50 planes, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So so I decided, well, it's probably not just air traffic controllers. It's gotta be just too busy.
Yeah,
Too many planes.
100% right. It's again with JetBlue, it's a couple of different factors, but for the New York market, that's exactly what we're hearing. Air traffic control is a part of this congestion. Air traffic is increasing. October nationwide also had a record number of passengers flying out in November. Yeah, and then Thanksgiving week as well. 50, so it's a grouping of things specific to New York City, including LaGuardia, JFK, and Newark. That is definitely causing some of this. For the Northeast airports, we're seeing them a big part of that impact, not just Burlington, Portland, and Manchester, New Hampshire,
Sure.
because one of our proximity to New York, but two, the revenue produced out of a small airport, small plane, is not as much as, let's say, coming from Denver or somewhere big as that. Or the number of passengers on a city. So it's business, it's got control. The good part for us is we have the good plans. The numbers, the data support New York, for just what's in the market. But this continued sustainability of the New York market is always and has been always in our data, and that's what we're pushing to the airlines. Granted, the things that we can't control, like air traffic, so this big piece. We've had lots of conversations though with our congressional delegation. One, to support the FAA reauthorization, which is expiring on December 31st. Our colleague Paul Bradbury, he's the director at Portland, Maine. He was in front of the congressional subcommittee on this very subject, talking in favor of all airports, of course, passing the authorization, but also air traffic control training and budget and those types of scenarios. Again, JetBlue is a different conversation because there are other hurdles that we should talk about. But overall, it's congestion. It's busy in New York, which, as we just had that conversation, it is by air traffic for sure.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Commissioners, any other questions for Nick or any other comments on the contents of the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the consent agenda as proposed, we signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? We are good there. We move on to item 5, which is our action item section, and item 5.1 is our first. We have a budget neutral amendments. So do I hear a motion to recommend Right. Yes. Do I hear a motion to recommend to the city council and the board of finance the approval of budget neutral amendment to increase federal grant revenue, state grant revenue, and fund transfer proceeds and to increase capital expenditures as outlined in the memos in the packet. I'm gonna switch it up for you.
We're gonna take turns.
No, we don't.
Okay, I move it.
All right, so it's moved by Helen. I second. And Greg will second. And Nick, do you want to take that?
Sure. I'll hand it up to Larry pertaining to the construction, but this is merely a factor of timing. Construction didn't start as quickly as we were hopeful for. The majority of this was budgeted in last fiscal year's budget. Again, it wasn't started then, so the shift into FY24 needed to occur, which is why you see the high number that you see in the budget amendment. You also see that 90% of this is federal grant revenue, which is part of that budget amendment. A portion of this is state grant revenue. As a reminder, we do receive right now $500,000 a year from the state. So a big part of that is allocated towards this. And then inter-fund transfer proceeds, or that local share that we've talked about in the past. That local share is also PFC eligible, so that will go into an alternate federal program for that $138,000 to be reimbursed back to the airport. So again, it's just a matter of time. I don't know if you want to add anything related to it.
I think timing was a big issue because we had, one of the most disruptive projects, smallest area with the most phases we've had here, and also impacted by another project being that range of when they could start to do things. So it's just a matter of timing in all the aspects of that particular project, which required us to push things back a little bit. And also because of the tight time frame to get this project done, we didn't want weather in the spring to hurt us or the fall because it would impact the airlines. So that's
And he is not joking when when he's talking about the complexity of the phasing of this project. This is taxiway ARPA, which is the taxiway that you see when you look out the windows of the terminal, the closest pavement. So between Dave and his operations team and Larry, the phasing was critical to decrease the amount of impacts to our airlines. But in other words, not shutting down gates for this to happen, which we were able to accommodate all the airline stays and shuttles. The project is open right now. This is more or less an accounting game of shifting the funds from fiscal year to fiscal year.
and we have the contract on 60 days to do this project. That's
If there's any questions on this action item. All right, hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That concludes item 5.1. We'll move on to item 5.2. I'd be willing to entertain a motion to recommend that the city council approve and authorize the purchase from Grassland Irrigation for a 2023 Groundsmaster in the amount of $159,000 and change. Motion to that was happily moved by Helen. Is there a happy second? This happily seconded by Greg, and discussion.
I'll say a couple quick words. This is no ordinary law. But Dave, go ahead.
So this is our primary reason why we use to keep the grass to a certain height that's required with FAA. The current unit that we have is roughly 17 feet old, and we're chasing crops with it. So at this point, we decided to go ahead and purchase a new one because currently that's about $4,400 on it. And if the current one that we have it's a tier 2 emissions. This one brings us up to the EPA standard tier 4 emissions. So this will not be purchased until 2025 budget. Because lead time is not for that's not purchase.
And the reason we're bringing it so early is we do have to sign a contract so that I can get this into production. However, the stipulation on the contract is no delivery till after July 1st.
It's very long. Yes. They couldn't get it rest. Doesn't do snow. It doesn't do snow. Baby.
It's feasible, yeah.
All right, commissioners, any questions on this? And just a technical one for you, right? So if we sign this agreement now, even though we don't take delivery until next fiscal year, it doesn't count as an encumbrance. Because we don't actually take delivery until next year,
Right, well, because they can't even have it available for us until next year.
even though
So
we committed to.
we're committing, but we're committing next year funds.
Okay, okay, just wanted to know.
Is
I'm
it-
curious how that works.
It's in agreement that it's not until.
No, we're not gonna take delivery, but I know making the commitment this year makes it down some of the.
Well, there's also language that says, there's always fine language on our contracts that says, as long as the appropriations is passed. So if, for example, as we're going through the budget for next year, and we have to cut that line item, then that appropriation is passed and then we'll
Yeah, but we can't cover this year's budget for something we're not. So like I can't cover next year's.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was technically, just there was a commitment. So, all right, commissioners, any other questions? Oh, go ahead, Rick.
Just to clarify what you said, I think you said that there was language in there that if the financial situation changed, that must be in the contract itself because it's not in the motion that we're voting on.
That's correct. That's in the contracts that we signed.
All right, commissioners, any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We are done with that. We will move on to item 5.3. Purchase of Ford Lightnings and Mach-E electric vehicles. I would entertain a motion to recommend to the city council to approve and authorize the purchase from Loyola Valley Ford in the amount of $183,860 and approve the associated budget neutral amendment as outlined in the packet.
So moved.
As moved by Helen, and seconded by Greg. Discussion.
This is a great step for us. These are 3 all-electric vehicles. Dave and his team have spent a significant amount of time making sure the specs meet our needs. This will also be the first airport in the state, as well as the first airport probably in our region that is using operational vehicles, both airfield maintenance as well as airport operations, to be using a 100% electric vehicle out on our runways and taxiways. It's a big step. We want to make sure we have the confidence in its capabilities out there as well. If you're here in person, wish you were here in person. We do have the units here to view. The dealership was kind enough to say yes to Dave and get them delivered just for one night for us to look at today. But again, it's a great step. We are replacing these with existing fuel-powered vehicles, big pickup trucks. The trucks are very capable, but probably more capable than we're used to because there's electric components like plug-ins and things like that in the beds of the trucks. So very, very eager to get these in our operational fleet. What we're asking for your recommendation today is 2 of the pickup trucks, which are the F-150 Lightnings, as well as the SUV, which is the Mach-E Ford Mustang. Both of these met our specs and met the budget for what we wanted. We didn't want $100,000 vehicle. We had a budget. Again, super excited. Dave, if you want to jump in there too.
Yes, we actually, we tried the best, approach to this. We actually went, tried to get our state bid. That was a little bit difficult for us to do. So we did this for the RFP options. Put it out to several different dealerships to see if they would entertain the option of 3 vehicles. And it was the Royal Valley Ford that came in the most for us. very exciting.
And the timing of this was really important as well. Well, a lot of, like Dave said, a lot of companies are accepting the state bid pricing and longer because the demand for retail is far too great right now for them to say yes to the discounts. But I just lost my train of thought, but there's credits, funds, incentives to.
Yep. So there's I think it's $23 per vehicle. Set.
Is that a state or federal?
So the electric
Combination.
department.
Oh.
They have a program. So not only for the vehicles, but also for the truckers as well.
Were there any state incentives or federal?
It all depends on where the electricity is being drawn from.
Oh.
So if it was Fremont Power, that would be incentive. Since the charters participate with the
We're another island of Burlington Electric Power that's used right here at the airport. We still have Fremont Power as well. We're not going to be putting the charging stations in the Green Mountain Power Zone yet. But right now it's going to be right here at the terminal because one will be Burlington's one will be terminal maintenance, which of course is here, and then one will be a general use vehicle. So whether we need a maintenance team member to go to Lowe's or Home Depot to pick up something, or airport administration needs to go to City Hall, I'm trying to completely eliminate any personal vehicle use with no gas power vehicles, as well as of course our.
Right, Brett?
What do you anticipate the lifespan to be for the vehicles? I know typically like state fleet is usually 100,000 miles. Do you anticipate basing it off of mileage or some other metric?
Yeah, mileage. The SUV will probably last much longer. We're not going to be using it as significantly as the trucks. The terminal pickup truck also won't need as much interaction, although I say it's for the terminal. This is for all of our buildings, so it'll be accessing things from the south side all the way up to our terminal. The operations vehicle, however, that gets a significant amount of mileage. So we're going to have to make sure we really identify it and track it. I think right now you're usually over 100 to 150,000 miles on each vehicle that operation uses. That's what we'll start retiring them. Our hope is 100,000 miles, but again, we're not 100% sure what the lifespan capability is going to be.
And something to add to that too, they just had a shred part today about a Tesla. 1.2 million miles. They did have to replace it with motors, but you're not replacing the engine, replacing just, smaller components. Right? So this is kind of a trial run for us, but I think
it's a trial run, not just for the vehicle itself, but we have master auto mechanics on staff. We have 3 of them. This is a whole new product for them. So we're starting some training with electric vehicle fleet. To a certain extent, and then like Dave said, we're going to have to work with the manufacturer to make sure we understand what components are going to be replaced, what are we going to need, what do we need in stock, those types of things. So it'll definitely be a training and new opportunity for us to learn what to do.
Great, thanks.
How about the lifespan for the battery?
I'm not familiar yet with those.
Well, they probably aren't either. I was just curious if they have any guesstimates.
Yeah. We did get the extended battery life on 2 pickup trucks, I believe.
Yeah, extended capacity.
Extended capacity. Because one of the things that we did a risk analysis on is we certainly don't want this vehicle stuck where it should be stuck, which is out on our airfield. Obviously, we have
Middle of a runway. Yeah, that's perfect.
We have the tools to move it if we need to, but we wanted to make sure that we're using it, and we're charging with clean electric use and not charging it when we don't need to charge it. Battery life, we're not 100%.
I did an online search, 100,000 miles or 18 years.
Oh, so they attribute miles to the battery as well. Is that what you're
This is
saying?
lifespan of 8 years or 100,000 miles.
The warranty here.
That's Just doing a basic search here, that's what anticipated range or estimated for that battery.
So potentially you'd buy a new battery, replace the battery versus, even if the chassis and everything else was not rusted or worn out.
So,
Because, yeah, I've had some Priuses and that's pretty much what you do and replace that battery. The battery is very expensive and it's not the easiest thing to get rid of safely. But, I've had two Priuses and they both went over 200,000 miles. Of course, Prius and the all-electric vehicle are slightly different.
But we'll learn.
Dave, just a question about incentives. And I'm not sure how the Inflation Reduction Act, the federal law, sort of pertains to businesses rather than individuals. But I know, at least for individuals, that if you replace a gas car with an electric vehicle, then you get up to $6,000 of a tax credit, sort of a deduction, but a tax credit. I don't know if that applies to businesses, and I don't know if we in fact replaced a gas vehicle with the electric one, but it's something to consider.
we have been working with downtown on that because the entire city fleet is going through that analysis to make sure that all vehicles that are being replaced hit some of those incentive programs on the federal level. Right now, we're not probably not going to hit that threshold, especially because of the cost of these vehicles. But through, like Dave said, through BED and some of these other programs, we'll have rebates associated with each vehicle and charging station, which we're going to have that. We don't have those yet.
Commissioners, any other discussion on this action item? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Move on to item 5.4, which is the waterfront grant agreement. I'd be willing to entertain a motion to recommend to the City Council to authorize the Director of Aviation to execute a 2023 ARPA Clean Waterfront Grant Agreement after review and approval by the City Attorney's Office.
So moved.
That is moved by Helen. Is there a second? Second. A second by Greg. Discussion.
Oh, okay, so actually, this is the result of a very motivated summer intern. We had Madison identified the summer, and she found out what we could do with this and move this project forward with little guidance. So there are things that outlined in the memo, the benefits are things that we want to do, need to do, and we quite frankly have to do. From improving sampling first, stormwater system being in the Champlain Valley, Lake Champlain watershed. So we've identified those items we want to move within the next 3 years. The state, they accepted it, and there's a 20% match, but these are items that we will be working on anyway.
Thank you, Doug. Discussion from commissioners. Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Move on now to item 5.5, which is the lease amendments. We want to entertain a motion to recommend that the Director of Aviation executes that the Director of Aviation execute a reinstatement and first amendment to the original cellular antenna license agreement that is SprintCom.
So moved.
That's moved by Helen. Is there a second? Second by Greg. Discussion.
This is a relatively simple one. We've been working with Sprint for many years. They have a cellular antenna, literally, so it's very small footprint, if you will. They do have some equipment inside of the building as well to support that system. And it's essentially the rent lease that we operate with them or an agreement on a monthly rental cost. We were up in the air with them for a little while of where we would want to look at putting them permanently based on terminal designs, parking garage designs, which is where this one is located. And and both Sprint and the airport agreed that the current location both meets Sprint as well as the airport's needs and really good revenue source for us. We do have other cell phone carrier agreements at the site as well. This is an extension of the existing agreement in the existing location for an additional 5 years.
Right, Commissioners, any questions on this item? Right, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That completes our action items. We move on to item 6, which is construction update.
I have no additional comment other than what's been provided. And I can entertain any questions you might have. We've had a great year. We're closing and cleaning up everything that was done and moving on to new projects right now. So that's not really much more important. What about it?
Thank you, Larry. Commissioners, any questions for Larry? Go ahead.
If it's a point of procedure, I had a question for Larry on the previous item, the clean water grant. Is it okay if
Yeah, absolutely.
I know that the motion has been passed, I'm just sort of curious. Just looking at that, and I was reading it when the vote took place, and I'm in favor of it, so I didn't want to raise a question then, but it reads that that we're going to use these. I don't have my glasses today, so if I'm moving back and forth like that, that's the reason. It says that we're going to use these monies to help improve the stormwater capacity, design new treatment practices, and fix existing water infrastructure, ... And my question is, I'm just sort of curious, is our stormwater capacity and treatment program, is that just connected to the airport terminal itself, or does our tenants, do their stormwater run into our program, and how does that work?
It's a combination of all right? The stuff on the land side, that stormwater runs to the city of South Burlington.
Mhm.
However, if you look at our QTA, for example, the stormwater from there goes through our treatment system on site. On the airfield, there's multiple areas where the water daylights. Most all of it either goes through treatment capacity, not all of it though, and discharges to the north or south, in where we sample 3 or 4 times a year for water quality standards. Also included in the stormwater is also our underground injection control system, which takes care of our glycol system, which is another collection area. It takes it to a certain location. Guard, for example, when they did that big upgrade to their taxiways, installed chambers and stormwater systems as a result of those improvements. So it wasn't just direct discharges to streams.
Beta did as well.
Beta did too. Beta's got some huge, you can take a ride around their parking lot. It's really funky looking thing. There's stormwater treatment systems. If you get a chance to go right over there. So we've got a mix of everything. We've got over 600 structures. And the listed, there's probably 80 of them we did identified that need repair, so we can use some of this money to repair 80 of these things. Capacity, we're in good shape from a capacity standpoint, with the exception of always moving to improve maybe those ones that go directly out, okay, as we move forward. Also, treatment practices, we're looking at that part of, I think we've had on our list of items where the FAA said was they would provide funding that wouldn't then do with regard to our UIC system. Now they're back in. I think this money will be utilized, part of this money will be used to do a white paper to identify what our options are to do a better job with that before we apply for a grant to move that project in a better solution with regard to recycling of our used glycol that delays airports. That answer?
It is, and I'm glad that you mentioned the Air National Guard, because I know that they sent out that document that the guard sort of said that they want to meet environmental standards, so they have an obligation to do that. So I'm glad that you mentioned that that was the case, that you felt good about the improvements they had been.
Yeah.
And the last thing you mentioned, that if I wanted to take a ride out to Beta to check that out, can I do that in the Mach-E or?
I only honestly needed to take it home every night.
I don't need to do it so you don't burn any fuel.
Can I get a company vehicle? You know, that's what I was open asking, so.
Just tell them what I said.
Yeah. But if you take your own, drive by, see it, it's pretty good.
And lastly, tell Madison, congratulations. So I know that I think you introduced her about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Said that she was going to be working on these things, and it's clear that she has been working.
Yeah, she was a bit that injured, you had to do it finally, giving you a Diet Mountain Dew or that was, she dove right in and you couldn't stop her.
And she's still doing it. She just sent us a report that she's doing about this airport at University of Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Pretty nice.
It was incredible to watch her also, because she just didn't stop.
We'll send her congratulations.
Yeah, she watches these, she'll watch this.
Well, that's good.
And that's
So the item 7 on your report, the glycol system upgrade, does that have any impact on this stormwater glycol capture?
What we did identify with the state is, okay, once we go to the FAA for funding for design and construction of that upgrade system, before we do that, we want to look at all the different options, like, do we want to centralize where the aircraft are de-iced rather than having being de-iced over 11 acres, right? We want to study that. Do we want to reintroduce the holding bay at the end of Gulf and just de-ice there? We want to have an overall review of the whole site with what the best option is for the treatment of that system with regard to leading to recycling of glycol in the Portland, Maine. Portland, Maine had a lot bigger issues than we have here with regard to that, but we should be moving in that direction.
I'm glad the funding was reinstated by the FAA, as I understand this, because that was,
Yeah,
we had it on and then it was off
and kudos for their pushing that.
well, thank you, because I think that's really important to our groundwater and Lake Champlain and Winooski River and a lot of places.
Okay.
All right, anything else for Larry? Thank you, Larry. We move on to the financial update from Greg.
This month you have before you have for the financial results that go through the end of October. So, the highlights from this is our revenues continue to be doing well. We have had, we're primarily higher due to our car rental car revenues and our parking revenues. And you can really see that both on the individual detailed reports, but also on the recovery revenue. Therefore, it's very interesting to continue to see that our parking is 106% of what it was for the same, we'll say the 12-month period ending October, because that's what the report shows, a 12-month rolling period, compared to, this is all pre-COVID is what we're comparing it to. So that's pretty good. Our garage, in fact, we have a lot of discussions about the garage. Our website is running at work 94% at the moment. Some ways that we've blocked out some spaces on the third floor deck, because there are some cars in there. We're trying to keep it from the snow operations and keep it closed, but we may have to open it up ultimately. It's because we continue to, during Thanksgiving week, I think it was the day before Thanksgiving, we block it off. Just, you know, it makes it difficult if people come back and their cars all snowed on, and, plows gone on behind. So we had to have capacity. We try to encourage parking in the garage, but we had to open it up on the day before Thanksgiving because we were down about 40 spots in the garage.
This might be one of the first years in a while that we're already stalled on allowing employees to park in the garage. Typically, we would allow that in the winter time because there's a surface lot that and when I say employees, I'm talking airline, everybody that works out of this building. This might be one of the first years that we might have to push that back into January or not allow it. Because right now, when we do the calculation, we're looking at today, around 150 parking spaces left in the garage right now, not including the third floor deck, which is closed, which is why I'm already saying we might need to open that. So allowing employees to park in the garage is definitely going to conflict with our passenger traffic and our passenger experience. As you may know, after allowing something for such a long period of time and then not allowing it, I didn't need that until I went as well.
So we're watching it closely, you know, it's one more thing, and it's great to have the revenue, and obviously it's very supportive, we're very thankful for that, very happy that people are utilizing the ground, that's what it's there.
And just to be clear, the service lot is maintained expertly for employees. We make sure the sidewalk is plowed as a priority for our passengers and employees. I encourage the team to park out there every now and again as well. So it's a great lot, but it's about a 3-minute walk.
Yeah, and then even on, and another revenue I'll point out is our car concession revenue, that was at 133% for that average rolling 12 month compared to what we were before COVID. So that's also, those are the two biggest drivers that we're seeing with those revenues coming in. Our expenses are, as we built the budget and as we do it, are higher than they were last year. But when I say expenses for September, I guess I like that one. So holiday. They are through October, to be clear, and they're primarily higher because we're doing the big garage project where we're replacing all the light fixtures, the gas transition, replacing the fire alarm. So that's being staged over about a year and a half total. That project is one project. Primarily because we have to close down sections of the garage to run and to do things. It takes time to close them down, so we've been staggering it so we're not interfering so much with the customers. We have closed that down for the next few months. A lot of that is just difficulties working in the garage. It's much more difficult to run some of those things. So we'll pick it back up in the springtime. And then just other things that we know and have planned on is just the salaries and overtime play out is sort of everything with COLAs and just people. I point those out, but nothing extraordinary unexpected. And our cash update, which is always an important metric of where we are, we had over $5 million in our general operating account. So we're been in good shape for that. We continue to work and get reimbursements. We have a lot of these projects, even though we've closed down construction, we're still getting bills on and paying large bills. We're paying a Duffy bill right now and this week on some of the work that's been done. So it's sort of always a moving target. We're always getting bills and we're seeking reimbursement and paying and closing out a bunch of our AIP grants that are like pretty much fully closed out. So the team has been out a lot of energy. It's going to be a lot of alliance between Larry and her and associate engineer and those are the highlights for this month's financial report, and I will entertain any questions if anybody has any.
There's questions for observations for me. I just had one, and it was you actually pointed it out already, but on the car concessions chart, the last 3 months have been particularly strong, and we're kind of like flatlining this and accelerating. I'm just curious if we have any reason why we think that all of a sudden car concessions year over year are growing faster.
Right. Well, I think they're able to charge. But also, I think for a while there were pressure as the car rental companies were returning to full operations after the worst of the COVID time. There was pressure. They struggled to get all the cars, just like all of the consumers were doing for commodity. And I think that it was probably difficult to get as many cars as they could actually sell. So they were bringing as many as they could get a hold of. Well, this year I know that supply demand for them, I was seeing these, those big trucks that come in and are loaded with cars coming in. So the fall is a very hot time for Vermont. Summer is a very good time for Vermont, where we have a lot of people planting their cars. Fall is exceptional as well. And we have a ton of people flying in for various reasons, might be foliage or might be that the school parent weekends, all of those things. We had a lot of cars. They were pushed to the max. In fact, they're asking for more. They'd love to have more spots and more places to go for cars because on those peak months they're really pushed in the facility. So they were good now. They had more cars. So I think they were able to rent more cars and seeing that was close. Revenues coming in, which is again, it's a good indication of part. I mean, it's interesting to see how that all ties in, how our airport really has an impact on the for Vermont, and it's really a good entry point. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria. We'll move on to item 8, which is community action and your first.
Other than what's presented, I don't have any other updates.
If there's any questions or observations on the information contained in the packet that is provided. We'll move on to 8.2, which is the residential satellite installation program update for Larry.
Phase 1 is substantially complete, which is the first 9 properties. There were storm order stuff that were a little bit delayed, still not installed, but we anticipate by the end of this month. Phase 2, the 6 homes are being they're in construction right now, so that's going well. One challenge there is one homeowner decided that they were just going to go to Florida for the winter. They didn't want their project done this time of year, so we got a little challenge with how that's going to work. We have a different contract going on next year. And this contract is bought off materials. So just what we do. We tried to get them to stay or have one of their relatives monitor, but they just left. So they signed the contract, but we'll work it out. We'll figure it out. So that was really a challenge that we really run into. We've had a good contractor out there. In phase 3, with the approach, potential residents for next year's 50 homes to design and apply program by May. We are getting set up to move forward with the construction of 52, or not construction improvements, 52 more homes in the spring with a different contractor and see how that goes. And with another 50 and see how we do with that.
So is the anticipation that a contractor will literally work and complete 50 homes every year?
No, the goal is to start several a week and finish several a week. Yeah,
And so far with these programs, right, even though they're the timing is consistent with that 50 houses a year.
Oh, okay.
So as long as we start in the spring and before winter, it should work really well for that 50 houses per year. And the competition is out there. That was one of our biggest worries was, are there enough contractors and subcontractors? But with these contracts right now, they're smaller, things seem to be working really well, and bids are coming back with multiple bidders.
Oh, good.
And even though the primary contractors might not be working, the subs are contractors that are performing that. You see the facts, happy with the facts.
Yes,
All right, sure.
I was. So, they're contained. It was safe.
That's how I shared it, Jen, the others.
Don't you breathe more easily at night?
Sorry, what I did that. You have any questions on those?
Any questions for Larry?
I'll just add one more thing about our noise exposure map update, another big one. We had a recent technical advisory committee meeting. My days are all mixed up, I believe it was last weekend. Which was really great. We're still in the data collection. What we presented last week was our radar data and literally the flights that are leaving and coming into the airport, and looking at the tracks, making sure that the users were involved, everybody from Heritage Aviation to the Vermont National Guard. And that's really going to be the primary input to this computer modeling. So having that information as accurate as possible with the users, the folks that are flying these planes or the entities that manage them, is really critical to the process. We're still on track, which is on track for the timeline that's presented right now, which is to present a draft noise exposure map by early summer of this coming year. We still have a lot of work to do and a couple of technical advisory committee meetings prior to any publication of a draft map. And then the second thing I was going to add was we're also still working with the OLDCC, which is the Office of Local Defense and Community Cooperation, a department of the Department of Defense, to really push for quite a bit of more funds for our noise compatibility program. Up to $18 million is being competed against nationwide. We're one of a very select few airports. Right now, we're looking at probably only one other airport in the country that may be eligible for this. So we're trying to really push hard to incorporate that for future phases that Larry was describing at the end.
And we'll know a little bit better February, March time, yeah, they might have that score again. We would have local contracts with local contracts.
Right. Go ahead, Brent.
Yeah, thanks. I noticed the website's been updated, so that's awesome. Thank you. Glad to see that. I'm wondering if there's meeting minutes or a recording. I just tried to check CCTV and I didn't see anything for the previous meeting in October. But if there's a meeting minutes or a recording, it would be nice for me to have a chance to watch that.
We do, and we'll make sure both the October and the last week's meeting is on there as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe I'm not using the right search terms on CCTV, or maybe it was just recorded through Zoom. But yeah, whenever you have a chance to send those recordings over, I'd like to watch that. And yeah, I think that's it. If you're able to post the agenda for the January and April meetings like a week ahead, at least a week ahead of time, that would be great. I know that public meeting laws, you only need like 48 hours, but if you're able to give a few more days, that would be helpful too.
Excellent. And those meetings that you're describing too, they are listed on our website right now. So if anybody's watching or whatnot, January 18th at 5:30 p.m. and April 11th at 5:30 p.m. are our final two technical advisory committees right here in this room right here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chip.
Director Longo, could I just to follow up on I don't know, I didn't catch the acronym on the available funds, but on the 18 million for potential noise mitigation, is it an all or nothing, or I mean, how are you envisioning, what is the competition, if you will? And then as a follow-up, by when do you envision having some decision? That obviously would be huge and welcome news. I'm just wondering what that process looks like.
The way I look at it is an all or nothing. I did tell the program director that because we have one of the largest residential civil use airports in the country right now with a program our size. And we're very clear both in our pre-application process as well as in our direct conversation that we are shooting for all 18 million. However, it's not appropriated that way. So we can apply for portions of it and so can other airports. Madison, Wisconsin is one of those other airports. And I love Kim. She's the director of Madison Airport. We have a lot of conversations together over the years. And there was even some conversation about splitting these funds, which I said, no, thank you. We're going to try to shoot for the $18 million. And she has a very similar program where her F-16s were retired very recently, just this year. And they're now just seeing their first F-35s arrive at the airports. They're undergoing their very first noise exposure map that incorporates F-35. So we're years ahead of them. And that's why I was so adamant with this DoD department, OLDCC, to incorporate all of these. The timing, like Larry said, right now it just finished a public comment period because it's a brand new appropriation. This has never been done with the Department of Defense before. Thank you, Senator Leahy and his staff, because they were the ones that wrote the actual appropriation bill and working with us. And it's going through that public comment, public response by the federal department, and then an application process starting in February. So we're still working with the timeline right now, and then the award wouldn't happen until summer of 2020.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
And that is all available too on their website, which is just oldcc.gov. And there's a subsection specifically for airport noise programs.
All right, Commissioners, anything else? Great, thank you, Larry. We move on to item 9, which is the director's report.
So a big part of my director's report is that I'm actually going to hand it off to Jeff to talk about all of the events that we've experienced from employees, and then I'll jump in with some of the travel things that we've also incorporated.
Great. Very quick one, not or just here.
Yeah, I can pull it up. Yeah, start there.
Very odd to have you all stare. It looks like you're staring at us. I know you're not.
It's your turn.
Like, what do I have on my face? What's happening here?
Okay, so we've had a good month, I think, overall. We've had a lot of really successful events. Press has been phenomenal. Nick has done a couple of radio interviews. He's got another one next week. And the Free Press did a pretty off-compensate article that was published front page last week. We talked about the airport. We also did some paid media through 7 days. There's a pretty large strike in this week, 7 days, as well, just kind of talking about the renaming and the direction that we're going for as an airport. Next slide. So just a couple of things. Marie, Nick, and I, we did a country base of Vermont event that was hosted by Bernie Sanders last month down in Washington, D.C. Got to mix and mingle with a lot of Vermont products, Vermont businesses. There's a lot of really good food. I think I gained 5 pounds while we were there in a 1-day trip. But we also had some one-on-one time with Congresswoman Balance staff to chit-chat a little bit about what's going on and their support. Nick talked about it a little bit earlier before the meeting, but he was in London, presented to the International Airport Summit. I think that was successful. Nobody saw it. I swear I was saying no video online, so we're all, checking the records. So.
And just a little bit more background. Really quick trip, but multiple day conference where I was on the panel, which is on the screen right there, which was about capacity constraints in airports. There was no presentation the way that the host airport as well as the host conference programmers wanted to do was we're on chairs on the front of the stage and we're having a debate among peer airports in really big airports. I was on a panel with the director of the Hong Kong airport, the director of the Budapest airport, who was our moderator, NATS, NATS, which is the governmental air traffic control division of Europe, as well as one of the directors of the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria. So it was really an all-encompassing, very different perspectives, both from funding standpoints all the way to size of the airport. Really successful. There were quite a bit of US airports at this conference, as well as, of course, international airports. I thought I was going to be one of the smaller airport representatives, however, I was not. I spent a lot of time with some of our Canadian partner airports, which are about an hour flight away from us on the very, very, very east coast of Canada. Which she also had some very intriguing scenarios that she's playing out. Really great conversations, not only at the panel discussion itself, but also getting to know some airports. Lots of questions like, which state is Vermont located in? To explain a little bit of.
You're Montreal, then they know.
That's exactly right. Geographic reference point.
Exactly.
But it was a spectacular couple of day conference, and some showcasing our airport in the magazine that is published internationally, which is the host, as well as really getting to meet and talk to some of these peer airports.
So last week, the Mower team came to the airport. We celebrated the 10th anniversary here. As you may recall, we have the very first pod they ever created still and being used in our north terminal. So we celebrated that, and they brought their new first pod as their first new line. And that's now over in the tip on the second floor, nice little backdrop. And they unveiled a new breastfeeding bench as well. So it's a fun event to get them together, had some like hors d'oeuvres afterwards. But they're really excited about the partnership. A couple days beforehand, we were in New York City, we landed in New York City, JFK, and walked out of our gate, and there was Mower. So it's kind of cool to see them expand and really start here at the airport. Last week, we also did the holiday celebration. Chelsea Green from our maintenance team put it together. Wreath decorating. We had some ornaments, food, music. It was a nice feel-good event. American airline employees actually showed up 15 minutes before we were supposed to start, chomping at the bits to go. But it was kind of cool. A lot of the leadership team also took some time of the day to help decorate for the holiday season here at the airport behind.
I didn't show you mine.
Yeah, I love the lights on it. Great, the colors, yeah.
And we are so conscious too about inclusivity and making sure that our holiday decorations either talk about the season that we're in, but also includes all of the holidays that are really over the next month or really 2 months into the week.
Because Nick wanted to go to London and not do this presentation, I went and presented at the acceptance hall.
That's very good.
And so Health Bronx put on this event, Destination DTV. It's the first annual. We're going to do it going forward to kind of get the tourism industry together, talk about what's going, some industry experts, guest speakers, just discuss where we're charting. Some key takeaways from the presentation were the V-Trans that I came presented, talked about the high gate border crossing upgrades that are coming down the pipe, as well as the interstate connecting to I-89, which is a huge opportunity for us as an airport to try to draw more time, which is going to be that much easier to get down to Burlington. And the big thing is the solar eclipse that's coming in April. There's a lot of interesting information shared. A presenter from Grand Rapids who experienced this came and discussed what happened. And a couple of interesting takeaways for our airport is they had over, I think they said over 300 private planes land just for those 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
And what they did to plan for that and so forth. And Nick and I have been brainstorming, and what we're thinking about doing is actually hosting an event on the 3rd story of the parking garage. Maybe get a band for a couple of hours, some food, maybe a beer garden of sorts, to celebrate it, make a little money, but also have a safe place for travelers, the community to come. The big problem with this, and I had a lot of discussions in my previous role on this Shanghai Expo, it's safety. You're gonna have an influx of 150 to 200,000 people coming. A lot of them will bring cars, and where are they gonna go? A lot of them will park on the side of the roads, and they'll sit there for 3 hours watching this event. I mean, the big event's only for 3 minutes, but the whole process of the eclipse is several hours. So we're trying to find a way to monetize it, obviously, but also provide a safe spot for all of our travelers that will be coming through the EBTV. And then a couple other projects that we're working on. We're working with Skinny Pancake on some seating, some more bar seating, and more booths available in the south terminal, to the north terminal. To help accommodate their big hurdle that they have is they don't have enough seating for single passengers who want to sit down, arrive 2 hours early, maybe have a beer or a cocktail. There's not enough room for them. So we've been working with them on that. We're exploring an idea of a tasting room or a Vermont product. Just more things to pass the time, which is leading me to what I'm really excited to share. The next slide is starting on Monday. We have partnered with Local Matter. It's a really cool marketing firm out of Burlington. They specialize and they work with Vermont makers on building their brand, building their products. They have a store downtown. We held a retreat in that store. And a lot of really cool products from food, like some jerky, to lotions, to jewelry, etc. And so what we're going to work with them on is we're doing 2 trials starting next week. They'll be in the information booth in the baggage claim. And they will be selling for a week gift baskets. And the way to work is buy the gift basket and then they'll ship it out for you. So if you're coming to Vermont, you want to sample some products, you can buy it, have it at home, or maybe gifts. And then the week after, we're actually going to put them in the tip. And they'll be doing cooking demonstrations, selling the same products, and just more amenities for our passengers to pass time. Maybe last minute gifts. They do work with a couple distilleries as well. So there'll be some sampling going on there. We're going to do 2 trials, one in December and then one in January. And if it goes well, I think it's going to go well, we'll be coming to you about maybe a more permanent operation. We're also syncing them up with Hudson News. So if this kiosk concept doesn't work, they're going to try to put some of the products that they help put together in Hudson. And they're all 100% Vermont based. And 85% of the organizations they work for are women owned and operated, which I think is pretty cool. So we're really excited about it. We've worked hard on this. I don't know if you want to add anything about it.
No, I'm super excited. Jeff has done a lot of work already. The team, the maintenance team has done a lot of work downstairs to prepare for this view right here. I think it's going to be very popular, very exciting, and connecting existing partnerships that we already have right here at the airport.
So there'll be a person.
Yep.
So it's live. I mean, it's a picture right now, but it's
right. Yeah, they're still finalizing everything tomorrow with them. You know what they're bringing for shelving and all of that. But they have one person who's going to be selling Eclairs. That's their product. That's all they sell is Eclairs. We can order online. So it's just another option that we can provide our passengers. I'm really excited about like the cooking demonstrations. They're going to be doing a making maple syrup demonstration. There's the head chef or Hannah Wood that signed up to do some stuff, and we'll promote that online. They arrive 2 hours early. Here you go. Nick, that's a phenomenal direction.
I think that's the best one ever.
I think so too.
No, it's really fascinating. Yeah, I think that sounds cool, really cool. Yeah.
All right, can I get any questions in that presentation? Well, it's like so not exciting. I had one that I had from Larry's presentation. So we had talked about we're going to reflow how the cars move through the parking garage. Like, and I know that it seems that we're suspending that for.
No, it's complete.
Oh, it's fully complete.
It's completed, yeah. All the signs are in. We did as much paint as we possibly could before it got too cold and we couldn't take it out. But we do now have
Okay, so we got it all done first.
We did.
Before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was maybe.
Park there.
45 days ago or so, I think we totally done.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and it seems to be working really well. There's still a couple of tweaks that we have to do. Jeff and I took a nice cold stroll through the garage, 4x4 walking. And it's 99% where we need it to be. And I think it's much more easier for a passenger to find a spot upstairs and deconflict some of the crossing traffic.
Move on to item 10, which is commissioner items. I didn't receive any in advance, but are there any items that commissioners would like to discuss at this time? Go ahead, Brent.
I mentioned it before, but I'm going to mention it again. There is significant opportunity for line striping for municipalities. So, Nick, if your team is ever looking for some additional opportunity out there.
For the right price for Winooski and South Burlington.
Yeah, we need more line stripping.
Interesting.
Striping, rather.
Yeah, it is interesting.
I don't know if we're allowed to actually, because it's airport owned equipment, but it's intriguing. It's intriguing.
Just know that there is that opportunity, there's that need, let's just say, whether or not it could be a realized opportunity might be something to look into depending on capacity and, you know, what you're legally allowed and permitted to do. But I mean, there's one contractor in the state doing line striping. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Actually, Tom DePietro also mentioned that at a baseball game that him and I were coaching against each other. He won. But he mentioned that as well. Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's my pitch.
Yeah. Commissioners, anything else? All right, we'll go on to 11. Item 11 is just follow-up items. We didn't carry anything forward. Are there any items we should add based on what has transpired in today's meeting? So that concludes item 11. Okay, so now we have those executive sessions. This is going to be a two-parter. So I'm slowly getting better at this. I'm going to try to work in something I want to make a suggestion on. So the first motion I would entertain is that we enter into executive. That we move to find the premature general public disclosure of the airport's legal affairs and clearly place the airport at a substantial disadvantage. So do you hear a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Let's move by Helen. Is there a second? Second. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Is there any extensions? Okay, here we go. This one's a tongue twister, so not a tongue twister, it's long. So I move that we enter into executive session to discuss the airport's legal affairs and the provisions of Vermont statutes. And given that there is no intent to take any action subsequent to the executive session, move to adjourn the executive session and then immediately move to the executive session.
So moved.
That's been ready. That's it. Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Right, so the regular session is adjourned and we will move into executive session now.
And I would just request